And so the history of the Hebrews is the history of the white European people. And we know that the northern tribes of Israel were the people that became the Germans, and also the Danish, the tribe of Dan, and the Dutch, and also the Scandinavians are the northern tribes, and the southern tribes are the Celts. Whereas the Jews, who've always been the enemies of the white people and vice versa, are a multicultural nation out of Phoenicia, and they want to create a multicultural Europe today.
I think there's a resurgence of anti-Semitism because at this point in time, Europe has not yet learned how to be multicultural. And I think we're going to be part of the throes of that transformation, which must take place. Europe is not going to be the monolithic societies that they once were in the last century. Jews are going to be at the center of that. It's a huge transformation for Europe to make. They are now going into a multicultural mode, and Jews will be resented because of our leading role. But without that leading role and without that transformation, Europe will not survive.
And the one idea is how we are going to exterminate white people, because that, in my estimation, is the only conclusion I have come to. We have to exterminate white people off of the face of the planet to solve this problem.
There are two issues at the top of our agenda at the very moment. One is the unbelievably important immigration debate in this country, to make sure that immigrants from around the world, particularly those from south of our border, have a chance here.
My concern is doing away with whiteness. Whiteness is a form of racial oppression. Sure. The suggestion is that it is somehow possible to separate whiteness from oppression, and it is not. There can be no white race.
Essentially, what you're saying is that in these both, you're together with both Muslims
yes.
and people of other nations.
And we see ourselves together, fighting together with our Muslim brothers who want a free Europe, who want a peaceful Europe, who want to integrate like our forefathers integrated in Western Europe 120 years ago, and they are our natural allies.
Quel est l'objectif? Ça va faire parler, mais l'objectif, c'est relever le défi du métissage. Défi du métissage que nous adresse le XXIe siècle. Ce n'est pas un choix. C'est une obligation, c'est un impératif. On ne peut pas faire autrement.
AJC has always worked on the premise that as a minority, our security, our strength, our well-being in America is interdependent with those of other minorities. This is a Jewish issue. It is very much a Jewish issue.
The honourable gentleman says that he's going to take in 20,000 refugees over 5 years. The Germans took in 10,000 on one day. What kind of comparison is that? I recognize the financial problems. I recognize the assimilation problems. But if we don't do it now, we will live to regret it for the rest of our lives. The message from my constituents in a huge postbag and in every event I attended in my constituency the weekend is, let them in.
Last week, HIAS organized a letter signed by over 1,200 rabbis. Can you imagine getting 1,200 rabbis to agree on one thing? But agree they did. And what they agreed was to ask our elected officials not to halt or even to limit the United States Refugee Admissions Program. And it's not just HIAS. Jewish organizations of all kinds across the spectrum of Judaism are issuing statements in support of refugees. These have included the Orthodox Union, the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum, and so many of the Jewish organizations that you heard are co-sponsors of this event this evening. HIAS works with affiliates throughout the United States, and so many of those affiliates are partnering with local Muslim organizations.
I've always believed that Britain is a country of migrants. I'm Jewish. Some of my family came in the late 19th century. I'm Sephardi on my mother's side.
Meine Damen und Herren, ich rufe Sie auf an der Demonstration Schöner Leben ohne Nazis. Vielfalt ist unsere Zukunft am 6. Juni in Neuruppin um 10 Uhr teilzunehmen. Wir müssen uns gegen die Nazis stellen. Schon aufgrund unserer Geschichte zwischen 1933 und 1945 sind wir verpflichtet, Flüchtlinge anständig zu behandeln. Außerdem muss deren Leben gerettet werden im Mittelmeer. Und es muss einen legalen Weg geben, um in Europa Asyl zu beantragen. Auch Länder wie Polen, sehr katholisch übrigens, müssen bereit sein, Flüchtlinge aufzunehmen. Dann gibt es ja noch was. Jedes Jahr sterben mehr Deutsche, als geboren werden. Das liegt zum Glück daran, dass die Nazis sich auch nicht besonders vervielfältigen. Und schon deshalb sind wir auf Zuwanderer aus anderen Ländern angewiesen. Bis zum 6. Jahr.
How do you now see the future of the issue of immigration developing now across the whole of the European continent, based on what you're seeing there in Germany?
This is a very good point, because immigration is the future. You cannot work and live in a globalized world, in the middle of the world, in Europe, without immigration and moving populations. So you have to really make a good policy of immigration all over Europe. And we see this, that the history of Europe, with this long history of nationalism and small countries, is now getting into a crisis. So this will need a long time to make it better, but you have to confront this. You have to really change the policy of immigration inside Europe. This is very important. You have to adapt the educational system and adapt all the self-understanding of the states. They are not anymore only white or only Swedish or only Portuguese or only German. They are multicultural places in the world.
Le Mashiach viendra que quand Édom, l'Europe, la chrétienté sera totalement tombée. Donc je vous pose la question, c'est une bonne nouvelle que l'islam envahisse l'Europe? C'est une excellente nouvelle, ça annonce l'envie de Mashiach.
The Census Bureau just reported that for the first time in U.S. history, minorities now seem to be surpassing white folks in births. And the forecast is that white folks are on track to becoming, and I hate to say this, the minority in America in about 40 years.
There's a second thing in that black box, an unrelenting stream of immigration. Non-stop. Fewer than 50% of the people in America from then and on will be white European stock. That's not a bad thing. That's a source of our strength.
Excellente nouvelle.
The Liberal Democrats will always stand up for a Britain that is open, tolerant and diverse. And in that spirit, I very much welcome the Jewish European Election Manifesto.
In the Bible, Jesus says that God loves everyone. In the Quran, not so much. Surah 3, verse 32. Say, obey Allah and the Apostle, but if they turn back, then surely Allah does not love the unbelievers. According to the Quran, Allah only loves obedient Muslims. I wonder why ISIS doesn't seem to have much love for non-Muslims.
Both born and raised in the United States, a country whose way of life they say they hate. And if you are not a Muslim, they count you as a disbeliever. Their mission? To terrorize you.
We're commanded to terrorize the disbelievers. And this is a religion, like I said.
Commanded to terrorize the
disbelievers. The Quran says very clearly in the Arabic language, Torhibuna. This means terrorize them. It's a command from Allah.
So you're commanded
to terrorize them.
Terrorize
doesn't mean
anybody.
You define terrorism as going and killing an innocent civilian. That's what you were. I define terrorism as making them fearful so that they think twice before they go rape your mother or kill your brother or go onto your land and try to steal your resources.
Just 2 days after President Trump provoked widespread consternation. So they don't say that he actually caused the riots, but they imply strongly that he did. They say he provoked widespread consternation. So riots broke out in a predominantly immigrant neighborhood in the northern suburbs of Sweden's capital, Stockholm. The neighborhood was the scene of riots in 2010 and 2013. But of course, there's no problem with immigrants. No, the problem is with Donald Trump. And they say it went on for 4 hours. The crowd burned about a half dozen cars, vandalized several shop fronts, threw rocks at police. They beat up a photographer for the local newspaper, stole his camera. But, these people are not bad. They're just misunderstood, right? They say Sweden took the greatest number of immigrants per capita. They say integration has been a success story there. This is the way Washington Post is spinning it. Say for incidents like Monday night. So they can't deny that these riots happened because they just happened. So immediately as it comes out, they try to spin it back and say, no, this is an outlier. This is an aberration. This really isn't characteristic of what's going on. We're going to show you that it truly is. They say that these things have happened in highly segregated neighborhoods. Yes. Why are they segregated? Well, they bring Muslims in because they know that Muslims are going to remain segregated culturally, religiously, and legally. They try to segregate themselves. They self-ghettoize in these areas, and that creates a problem for the next generation. We're going to get to that in a moment here as well.
And when we look back at World War I and World War II, we see that these wars were white man's wars being fought in Europe in order to free Europe from the rages of despotism of the Nazis and also the communists, which are both causes that have been raised and financed by the Jewish international bankers and also the Jewish rabbis. And we know that the whole purpose of World War III today is to overthrow the West. And we see this war taking place already in the Third World, and all the refugees that are created out of places like Libya and the Sudan and Africa, and also Iraq and Lebanon and also Syria, are all coming into the Western world today to enjoy our prosperity and freedom. But the whole purpose of this is to undermine our Western culture and make it a multicultural world and to eliminate the whites.
Let's keep going.
You can yell and get loud and try to label me all you want.
No, you said
yell
Jewish. You
and
didn't
get
say
loud.
Protestant.
Yes, I said
I should
Jewish.
kick your fucking ass. I had
Oh, come on.
That was your fault.
Apparently, this is the Fighting Jew Fest. Let's see that again. All right, one more time in slow motion.
That was a blatant assault.
We got that on camera.
We got that on
Yeah, it's right on camera.
You are a disgusting piece of trash.
What are you doing?
This is freedom of speech in America. You piece of trash.
Stop hitting him.
Shut up.
No, you are trying to label him.
I am half black, you moron.
cool it with the anti-Semitic remarks.